Ladies and gentlemen viewers, you are watching the in-depth international geopolitical analysis program. And ladies and gentlemen, what the world has witnessed over the past few days truly feels like a climactic episode of a geopolitical documentary series on Netflix, where every decision made inside a war room can shake the entire global energy system. A gigantic chess match is unfolding, a chess match where every move carries millions of barrels of oil, trillions of dollars, and the risk of a widening war. At the center of this storm is the Strait of Hormuz, a stretch of water no more than a few dozen kilometers wide, yet it is called by a name that makes every strategic planner shudder, the energy valve of the world. Every day, nearly one-fifth of the world's oil must pass through this place. If Hormuz were blocked for just a few days, oil prices could explode, financial markets could tremble, and major economies would immediately feel the pain. But what has astonished the world is that within just 48 short hours, this region has witnessed a chain of developments that made many experts exclaim, "We may be witnessing the moment when the rules of the sea are being rewritten." Iran opens a special privilege, a move that seemed perfect now. Ladies and gentlemen, everything began on March 4th. Amid escalating tensions in the Middle East, Iran suddenly made a shocking announcement. Tehran declared that only ships carrying Chinese nationality would be allowed to pass safely through the Strait of Hormuz. A short statement. But its geopolitical significance is truly enormous, because it essentially sends a very clear message. The West could be cut off from the oil flow, but China, the largest buyer of Iranian oil, would still have the door open. In other words, Iran was placing itself in the position of holding the world's energy valve, and Tehran wanted to tell the entire planet, we can close the valve or open the valve whenever we want. If this strategy succeeded, Iran would achieve two goals at once. First, to pressure the West through energy risk. Second, to pull China deeper into its circle of interests. Because if Iranian oil becomes a dedicated lifeline for China, Beijing would have a very strong incentive to protect Tehran economically and diplomatically. A move that, at first glance, looked very clever. But then, just 24 hours later, the chessboard completely turned. Washington makes a move that stunned the world to end. The following day, a sudden military operation began. According to several military reports, the United States launched a series of coordinated strikes from the air and the sea. The target? Iran's oil tanker fleet. The initial results left many observers stunned. More than 20 Iranian oil tankers were sunk or destroyed, a number that is far from small, and what is even more frightening is the message behind this operation, because Washington seemed to be telling the world, Iran does not decide who gets to pass through Hormuz. The one who controls the sky and the sea is the one who writes the rules. And in this chess match, the United States is trying to prove that the rules are still written by them. Only one simple thing needs to happen. Every tanker leaving Iran risks never returning. And once the market believes that could happen, the entire oil trade chain will automatically freeze. The moment that sent chills through military analysts. But ladies and gentlemen, there is one detail in this operation that truly made many military experts shudder. One of the Iranian ships that was sunk was not destroyed by aircraft, not by missiles, but by a torpedo fired from an American submarine. What makes this event particularly remarkable is that this is believed to be the first time a U.S. submarine has used a torpedo to destroy a real target since World War II. It may sound like just a military detail, but in reality, it carries an extremely heavy psychological meaning, because in modern warfare, aircraft can be seen, missiles can be tracked. Radar can detect threats, but submarines cannot. A submarine beneath the ocean is like a ghost. Its strike is like a silent death. The enemy only sees the ship explode, but they do not know where the strike came from. And when the United States brings the submarine card back onto the table, they are sending an extremely cold message. The ocean is no longer a safe place. China's 200-day clock. In that context, a question has begun to appear on the desks of policymakers in Beijing. How long can China endure? According to many estimates, China's strategic oil reserves could allow the economy to hold out for about 200 days. It sounds long, but for a gigantic economy like China, the issue is not whether there is oil or not. The issue is whether the flow of oil is stable or not. If businesses do not know what the oil price will be next month, factories cannot plan production. Logistics chains cannot calculate costs. Financial markets begin to panic. A large economy does not die because it lacks oil for a week, but it can slowly die because the flow of energy becomes unstable. The battle over legitimacy. At an even deeper level, Iran is facing a problem more dangerous than bombs and bullets. International legitimacy. When Tehran tries to turn Hormuz into a geopolitical weapon, many energy-importing countries begin to ask who is actually able to guarantee a more stable energy route. For Asian economies, this is not a story of loving or hating Iran. It is simply a cold calculation. Whoever keeps the oil flowing steadily, that is the one who will be supported. And in this region, that role still belongs to the United States. A new front, gunfire from the Iraq border, paid it. But ladies and gentlemen, the worrying developments have not stopped. According to several intelligence reports, thousands of Kurdish fighters from Iraq, reportedly backed by the United States, have launched an attack on Iran's western border. If this information is accurate, this would be an extremely dangerous escalation, because airstrikes can destroy infrastructure, but a ground incursion carries a completely different meaning. It sends a frightening message. Iran's borders are no longer untouchable. For any regime, this is an extremely powerful psychological blow, because the power of a state does not lie only in weapons. It lies in the belief that no one can cross the border without being punished. If that belief is broken, everything begins to shake. The strategy of blinding, breaking, cutting the nerves. Meanwhile, airstrikes in western Iran are also intensifying. According to many military analyses, the objectives of the United States and Israel are very clear. 3 things are being targeted. First, blind the eyes. Radar systems and air defense warning networks are being destroyed. Second, break the fist. Missile depots, UAV stockpiles, and logistics facilities are being struck. Third, cut the nerves. Command centers and communication systems are being paralyzed. When these 3 elements are broken, Iran may still have weapons, but they cannot coordinate them into a large counterattack. What cards does Iran still have? In this situation, Iran still has several cards. The first card is controlled retaliation. Tehran does not need to win. They only need to prove that war will become extremely costly if it continues. The second card is still Hormuz. Just making the shipping route slightly more dangerous could shake global oil prices. The third card is the nuclear file. The shadow of an Iran moving closer to nuclear weapons always worries the world, and that could become the biggest bargaining chip, a storm with no clear end. According to statements by Donald Trump, the military campaign could last 4 to 5 weeks, but many experts believe things could become far more complicated, because in the Middle East, wars rarely end quickly. It is like a desert storm. At first it seems as if it will last only a few days, but then new spiraling winds continuously appear, and the storm can last for months, even years. A fragile world. And ladies and gentlemen, when oil tankers burn in the waters of the Gulf, when submarines silently hunt beneath the ocean, when military bases tremble under waves of airstrikes, the world is entering an extremely fragile moment. All it takes is one small mistake, one miscalculation, one accidental collision. The entire Middle East could explode. And the biggest question now still hangs in the air. Can Tehran turn the chessboard around, or has control of the energy valve of the world truly changed hands? The answer, perhaps we will have to wait for the developments that come next.